All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another Hump Day Hanger presentation sponsored by supergov.org and the Not So Straight and Level podcast. And I think this is like number 22. And we pulled this one together pretty quickly. Sorry about the short notice on some of these coming out, but we're getting we're running thin this time of year, but it's going to get better. So first, I want to say thanks to everyone for being here. Tonight is pretty much all about Arkanstol and flying in Northwest Arkansas. And I'm going to take just a few minutes here at the first to introduce you to the Airfield Guide and why it's important to your visit to the Ozarks. If you're already an Airfield Guide expert, don't worry, this is not going to take long. As always, before we'll be monitoring the chat on YouTube and on Zoom. So if you have questions during the presentation, I know the folks tonight will want to answer those questions for you. So be sure to ask those questions via the chat. And if it's real elaborate, we can even unmute you and let you do that. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do a quick screen share because I want to show you a little bit about the Airfield Guide. I'm going to switch over to that. Let's see, here we are, bingo. If you've not been ever looked at the Airfield Guide, I'd strongly recommend you have a look at it, especially if you're coming down to this area. But one of the things I want to show you that are important about this is it's basically a library of all these airstrips that are all over the country. But since the Airfield Guide was developed in this area, it's got a really good coverage of those. So I'm going to go up here to this corner and click South Central because that's the region that I'm in right now. And you can see all of these airstrips down there. Down here, right here, is Bird's Adventure Center, Bird's Backcountry Airstrip where you're going. And as you can see, it's green. And what green means that it's a public and a permissive airstrip. So you can just fly right in there willy-nilly. Even some of the private airstrips are permissive to where you can go in. Although it's always best to check the Airfield Guide just to get an idea about what the approaches are. There's videos and all kinds of stuff. And in fact, speaking of that, let's just pull this Birds up really quick here and have a look at what's available. So it tells you all about the strip. Right here, there's a note that says noise abatement procedures are in place. So they want you to look at the map over here and figure out where the noise sensitive areas are. It's a map of the runways you're going to be using. It tells you where the windsock is, some things like that. You can go to runways, see the different runways that are there. There's only 2 of them here that they have actual videos of going in and out of those runways. So it's really an in-depth look at what you can do when you get to that airstrip. There's photos and other videos of going in and out of there. And then also there's the relative hazard index, which was developed by Galen Hanselman for all of these in here that tell you, relatively speaking, how challenging a runway it is. So pay attention to that stuff as well too while you're there. I want to just show you really quick an example of a permissive or a conditional strip. Up here, well, this is not the one I wanted to pick, but let's see. I'm going to go over here to this one. Okay, so we'll just look at this. This one says down here is when the permissive strips, they want you to contact the owner for field conditions and permission to go in there. So if they're yellow, please be sure at least to look in the guide before you go and land at these places and contact the owner. The owner's number and preferred method of contact is starred down here. In this case, this guy would like you to contact him by mobile phone. So just be sure to take advantage of all that stuff here because we want to be good stewards of this area while you're in here. We want you to enjoy all this stuff, but really want you to be a good steward of the area as well too. Now, one last little thing that I want to tell you about before I turn it over to these fine gentlemen that are waiting to speak. You can take all these waypoints and you can put them right in ForeFlight. And today, if my water heater had not blown up in the house, I would have put together a little video of showing you how to do that. It's not hard. Once you've picked an area like South Central, right over here it says share filtered list with other applications. And if you click that, were you on an iPad with ForeFlight, this would not be grayed out. It would actually be highlighted, and you can download the detailed map layer or the user waypoints. The detailed map layer I recommend because it shows you the permissive and conditional statuses of the airfields. And the user waypoints are nice because you can do direct twos using those. So I'd actually put both of them on your machine or on your iPad. And like I said, if you have trouble with that, we're going to have a video in a day or two on how to do that. So that's about all for me, although I'm going to say that John Young this evening, Rusty Coonfield, and Joe Edwards are three of the founders of the Arkanstol event that are with us this evening to talk about this upcoming event. It starts in just over a week, and so we're interested in hearing any late-breaking changes and things, and welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Hey, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm turning it over to you.
Really
All right. Rusty, once you're ready to take it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to do share my screen here and we'll kind of get started. All right. If I've done this right, everybody should be seeing a husky there. Nice yellow husky. Great birds. And the tagline we've adopted a little late, but really quite defines what we're doing with this, which is pretty cool. And if some of you haven't seen this before, I'd like to switch over to a quick video, kind of give you a little bit of an idea. Let's see. Is that working for you guys? All right.
Are you guys going to move Lake Tahoe out here to Arkansas? Is that part of the deal?
Yeah, so I realized that video probably didn't come across real well over the Zoom, but you guys can always look at it on our YouTube channel at our YouTube Arkanstol. We're really excited to have Kevin Quinn and Trent Palmer and some of the other guys from out west that have done such an awesome job promoting backcountry type flying coming in for the event, and have been just absolutely wonderful about wanting to help and help get the word out. And so we wanted to feature them and let everybody know that they were going to be around, which is a pretty fun deal. And so now we're going to turn it over to Joe and kind of get him started talking about how we got all this started. And in short, if everybody doesn't know, Arkanstol and the Ozark Backwoods Challenge is a flying competition at Birds Adventure Center that we're doing. It's in a format that's never been done before that I know of, or it certainly hasn't been done on this scale. And you'll learn a lot more about it here through the remaining minutes. Take it away, Joe.
All right. Well, Steve, a little background. I've been a flight instructor for almost 50 years now, and I've watched the evolution of recreational aviation. And I have to tell you that what we're doing would not have been feasible 10 years ago. What I have witnessed is as we have created the light sport market, there's been just a blossoming of equipment and qualified people that have gotten into recreational flying in the backcountry environment. We got equipment now that has capabilities far superior to what we used to have available to us. And it has permitted a type of flying to be done safely that we couldn't do earlier. I mean, Cub crafters came on the scene and I think opened the door, and immediately behind them, a host of other manufacturers rushed through the door, providing some phenomenal product. I mean, equipment that makes the pilot safe despite himself. Anyway, as that has come about, and as Kevin Quinn has put on this Stoll drags, we've seen an influx of people into recreational aviation that has been unmatched to my knowledge. And these people are looking for a way to play and enjoy themselves and be challenged. Well, the drag Stolls have been going on now, I think, for 10 plus years, and they've had a phenomenal following. What we're doing is kind of an extension onto that. And whether we did it or not, this is something that I think was timely and would have evolved without our efforts. But we just happened to think about it, be in the right place, have the proper amount of alcohol when we started thinking about it. And it has resulted in us coming up with what we consider to be a challenging undertaking for the accomplished pilot. I'm not going to kid you, this is not an everybody event. It's challenging. It's intended to be challenging regardless of your skill set, so that it will continue to be a challenge even as you move up in higher skill level and higher performance equipment. Anyway, Zen had his first passion in powered parachutes and some ultralights. And he had a number of strips on his property that were not for aircraft use, but I think it started with one of the Cub crafters dealers coming in and converting one of the runways from a ultralight to a light sport runway. And soon after that, everybody else started doing the same thing. And one by one, each of these shorter runways has fallen to heavier equipment. And over time, we started saying, this sort of thing is really challenging. It helps develop a much higher skill set. Why don't we bring more people into it? And there was a lot of discussion. Obviously, there are people who are concerned about the overall safety. I have to be honest with you. Aviation, if you're totally safety oriented, you need to stay out of aviation. It'll destroy your pocketbook. Anyway, we don't feel that this event poses any greater challenge than going out and doing Stoll performance, Stoll competition, which is occurring virtually everywhere in the country now. Anyway, I have one problem with my co-conspirators, and primarily it's that when they had an opportunity to talk me out of it, they didn't. I hold that against them to this day.
We tried, Joe. We tried.
Well, the truth is, it was a harebrained scheme that was endorsed and supported unnecessarily. And now that I'm knee deep in it, I'm wondering what in the heck I was thinking. The event itself is going to be the beginning of probably a number of similar events because it requires a wide range of skills to perform it well. Now, a lot of people can fly it, but to fly it well requires a very well-developed set of skills and appropriate equipment. Now, I say appropriate equipment. We got one gentleman that's been flying this thing in a stock Cessna 175 with nose gear. Now, if you don't think that's intimidating, for the rest of us with stole equipment, it makes you have a little less, pride in your skill set when you see somebody fly a inferior piece of equipment and still accomplish what you thought was work. So anyway, due to the support of John and Rusty, we managed to put this thing together. I had the idea, but they basically made it happen by putting all the different ingredients together in a way that it became feasible. And, that basically is how this whole thing came about. We were led astray and nobody stopped us.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, Joe talked about this, and all of us were, kind of like he said, we were a little taken aback at first, but the more that Joe talked about it, and we realized that he's absolutely right, that the equipment and the skill level of a group of pilots in the country these days are more than capable of doing this course safely, doing it as a timed event, but then it also, because it's a timed event, allows them to incrementally up, keep challenging themselves. And the more we thought about it, I think there's a place for it. Absolutely.
Now, Rusty, if you would you bring up the map of birds with the runways and let me do a quick overview of the course?
You betcha.
I'm trying to get my part out of the way early before I run out of things to say.
Let's see, let's do this. All right, y'all got that, the challenge. And this is the course. And as Joe talks about it here, I can try and highlight some things on here if necessary to help point them out.
All right, on my screen, Rusty, the cross runways on the very east are not visible. They're blocked by.
Let me pull that in.
So people can, if the all the different pictures of the people on the right-hand side of the screen are blocked, there's a little minimize button.
There you go. That'll work.
To get rid of it.
Move it one more time, Rusty.
Way. Is that good for you?
Just a little bit more to the left. Because I want to show that red off of the north-south runway. There. One more time. All right, that'll work. Now, just to give everybody a clue, red in this particular instance means no. That when you see red, it means it's a place you do not need to be. The course itself is set out so that the individual that flies it starts midway of the main river runway, and he has the option of departing east or west from there and landing turning around and taking back off from each of the other 3 runways. Now, there's a lot of decision making here based on winds the day of the event. There are considerations in that if you take off going west from the middle of the runway, you will see 70-foot trees directly off of the west end of the primary runway. You want to be sure that your equipment performance permits you within 1,000 feet, maybe 1,100 feet, to clear 70-foot trees. These are all considerations. Now, all the red around here, you've got just a few places that you can go into if you have a power failure. The main thing is, if you're carrying energy, you can make it to one of these places. If you can't make it, then you get rid of the energy as quick as you can. Now, I want to walk you through my preferred course of running this particular event, and that is to start at midfield and go east. As I go east, you want to take the shortest distance to the very next runway, which for me at this point is going to be Traveler, which is an 800-foot strip. And I will turn, as soon as I am aligned with it, I'll turn into Traveler, land, try to brake fairly aggressively, spin the aircraft around, depart back to the south. Now, as I do, you've got to reverse from there and do a teardrop reversal back into the adjoining runway. And to do that correctly, as Rusty depicted, you deviate a little bit wide to give yourself a little more radius on that turn. This is a fairly tight turn. And coming back in on the 600-foot strip, you're coming over power lines at the very south end of it. It makes the first 200 feet of that runway unusable for all practical purposes. Now, once you go into that north-south runway, you again, you do not have to come to a full stop. You must simply slow down enough to spin around and take back off going to the south. Now, there is a point here. The terrain rises quickly. Going into either of those 2 runways, once your wheels are on the ground, the possibility of you doing a go-around is going to be very limited. Unless you're Steve Henry, I don't think you want to try it. So a decision on a go-around really needs to be made before your tires are on the ground. Now, let's take back off from the north-south runway. As soon as we break ground, we're now making a beeline for the restaurant runway. Now, when I say a beeline, you can't get there and you can't see it until you're over the crest of this ridge line. Now, you have a choice. You can either go up and over the ridge line to get to it, or you can swing around the ridge line, both of which are going to add distance. It's a matter of preference to the pilot, but they're both going to add distance. Now, once you clear that, either way, you have a descent you have to make to the restaurant strip. It has roughly 1,000 feet with obstructions, trees primarily, off of the south end of it, about 100 yards off of the south end. And it doesn't matter where you approach it. There's trees. If you do an abbreviated base or if you do a long final, you've still got obstructions that's going to limit your ability to get down until you clear them. Now, bear this in mind. That's a long run from the very far east end to the west end. During that time, you're trying to make best times you can. You want to shorten the distance, and you also want to run at a brisk speed to cut down on the elapsed time. What you have to do is decide where to start your braking, because you've got to take from, say, 100 mile an hour, 110, 15 mile an hour. You've got to get back down now to a slow approach speed to get down on this runway. Now, 1,000 foot is not overly short, but you've got to remember that every second you roll down that runway adds another second coming back to the direction you landed. So you're doubling. Every second of additional taxi is 2 seconds added to your total time. Now, when you come out of the restaurant, as soon as you depart, you try to set a direct line back to the main runway for a finish. Now, as you do this, you're going to have a tendency to want to run hard. I want to point out to you again, when you get to the 70-foot tree, if you've got 100 something miles an hour, you better be able to get her slowed down and get your wheels on the ground within 1,000 feet to finish, because the timers are electric eyes and we've set them to catch the fuselage only if the tires are on the ground. And the finish is going to be by passing through the finish gate in a roll. We're permitting people to come through it with the understanding, I don't want them to stand the airplane on the nose. So they can roll through it, but they must come to a stop on the runway before we permit them to have a good finish and taxi off. And that does not mean 90 miles an hour with the mains on the ground. We will disqualify you for that. Now, you obviously, let's come back to one thing over on the east end with the 2 cross runways. When you're taking off on the main runway, you cannot see either runway. They're both obstructed by terrain and other features. So you must have some idea of where they are, because by the time you can see them, it's too late for you to decelerate. That's why I tell everybody, run the course a couple of times leisurely before you start trying to get aggressive with it, because those 2 cross runways are not visible from the main runway, and they will not be visible until you're probably 200 feet or so from the threshold. Now, I'll entertain a question if someone has it. Other than that, if there's any comments that Rusty or John want to make.
So one of the things that I'll make a comment on, this is John, the as Joe depicted, that's kind of his preferred method. The opposite direction obviously can be done as well. That's actually my preferred method to run the course. And everybody kind of has their own feeling about that, what they feel like they can accomplish. But the order you hit grit and traveler, obviously up to the individual and the pilot. And one thing I will say is the course tends to be a little bit of an equalizer. It kind of reminds me of the old NASCAR, the original, not NASCAR, but stock car stuff, where, some cars were faster in the straightaways, some cars were faster in the corners. And I think the pilot skill set, obviously whether they feel more comfortable in the turn or in the straightaway. So there's a lot of variables that Joe pointed out as you go through the course to consider.
That's one thing we took into account when we were deciding the classes of aircraft that we were going to have. Traditional STOL competitions these days have 5 classes, I think it is. We decided to keep it at 3 because we did feel like this is going to equalize between the classes quite a bit, because you've got so much variance in what you can do here, and so much variance in how you're going to run the course based on your skill level and judgment and the winds of the day and things like that.
Hey, Rusty, what are the 3 classes?
So we've got light sport class, we've got touring class, and what do we say, heavy touring class?
Bush
class.
Bush.
So
Yeah.
no experimental, no certified experimental type
Right.
differentiation.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, when we put this together, quite honestly, we were just hoping to be able to fill 1 class.
Right.
So bear that in mind.
No,
Yeah.
just curious. Hey, and I had another question too. So, John, you said you like to run the course backwards. Is it exactly the same thing, only backwards, that you do that Joe depicted there, or could somebody decide they do something completely different, or is there just really only one way, or forward or backwards, to go through it?
There's basically four ways to run the course. The way Joe took it, you can definitely go into Traveler first, or you can go into Grit first, and reverse those two runways depending on what you're more comfortable with and what you think will get you the best time before proceeding over to the other runway. My way, two different ways as well. I go straight to the restaurant strip, come out of it, come back across the main runway there, and then my choice is to go into Traveler first. Again, and then come back out of Traveler into Grit. And what ends up happening out of Grit, I actually don't land on the first part of the runway. I land a little bit further down. So when I make my turn, I can come south and then make an immediate right turn, which puts me lined up straight with that main runway, and keep my speed up running across there. So there's if you watch different people run the course, and again, depending on the airplane, I saw some incredible stuff out of the folks at the Savage Aircraft there. They're bringing their airplane in, and I thought his tires were actually crawling up the trees. It actually scared me a bit, but as I looked at it and I understood the airplane can do that and do it safely. I wouldn't try that in my Husky. I tend to carry more speed through that area than try to cut the corner and crawl over that tree line.
Hey,
So
Steve, let me add one thing in here. And John is comfortable with his route, and I've run it both ways. The greater challenge for me is the amount of speed I developed from the restaurant strip going east. And I'm going into the two shortest runways. I have to more accurately assess where to decelerate and get rid of that extra airspeed and altitude in order to go into these two short runways. Those two east runways are the toughest ones in the whole environment. And I don't like coming in at 120 mile an hour and then in a matter of 100 yards trying to bleed that down to 30. John's adrenaline levels obviously aren't rising as high as mine.
Well, when we did it the other day, and I tried to do it Joe's way for the first time and took off going east. And even though I've been there quite a bit, I missed my cues on when to make the turns to get into the cross runways, and was not happy with the result. So for me, it was much more comfortable. That's a key of the course there. And I think especially for folks that are coming in that have not run the course a few times, is as Joe said earlier, those visual cues on when to make the turns and when to slow down for those cross runways. If you're coming in low from the main strip, it's hard to do.
So speaking of running the course, so you're going to have these people coming in from all over the country, and all of these guys, no matter when they get there, are going to want to fly through this thing once. I know you've got it set up for qualification and for doing the actual event, but how are you going to do the practice sessions for folks? How are you going to manage that?
I'll kind of speak to that a little bit. And to be honest with you, that's been something because the nature of the fact this is a backcountry airport, so it is not tower controlled, obviously. There is no cell coverage while you're on the ground. The best way to get cell coverage is get up in your airplane. So to give you an idea of the remoteness of it, the other aspect is that you're coming in. There is a blind corner around there towards a restaurant strip. Most people land on that strip, and we will have people arriving. We actually have developed a fairly sophisticated system that we are going to implement that will actually have a ground controller when these folks are running. It will have people positioning. It'll have. I heard that you can't use the word ATC because we're not air traffic controllers, but a guy that will be helping monitor 122.9 as people come into the course and work that sequencing in. We've also established, and Rusty did a great job establishing an approach procedure that we have on the website. Very similar, if you guys go to Oshkosh, very similar to that. They'll have visual cues and everything else. that we'll be able to use to bring people in. So on Thursday evening will be, the finishing up of the qualifying. There will be people arriving earlier in the week, and we're going to let them qualify as they come in, because we're going to make them qualify before they run the course. The qualification is set up to make sure that you can handle what we consider the most challenging runway, and that's grit. We're not going to do it on grit. We're going to do it over the restaurant strip, but there will be actually a coordination there that happens. And when we run the course itself, we will have people stationed with radios, making sure there are no deer on the runways or aircraft on the runways. So before we launch somebody, there will be a checklist that we go through to make sure that the course is clear for that competitor.
Good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know somebody told me that they were going to show up here on Monday. So are you guys going to be there all week?
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of us there.
There's a lot of us there, but officially, our advisory services will start on Thursday. We may
back that up to Wednesday.
That's true.
We're going to start as people. It depends on when there's a critical mass of people present. We're going to start exercising some jurisdiction over them.
Yeah, I'd really like to, for anybody listening, or pass on to your friends. We've got this. The whole thing is set down in a valley. The hills are pretty big around it. If you've flown in the mountains before, you're going to be comfortable. But if you haven't flown low in the Ozark backcountry before, make sure that you look at the arrival procedure stuff that we've got on the website. Once we throw in several airplanes into this mix, we need to make sure that everybody's got the right plan and on the same page, literally. And we've got that all on the website for people to download and bring with them.
Well, the other thing I'll point out is, for some reason, and one thing we haven't mentioned here that's very important, is the airspace on Saturday of the competition will be closed to arrivals the entire day. We will allow departures if the competition ends at a safe enough time for people to get out of the hills before it gets dark. But we're closing. We thought about it, and we had a lot of people, and it was a very long conversation we had many times about allowing people to come in the morning. But as you guys are familiar with these hills around here, it's likely we'll have fog in the morning, which kind of abates that. And we didn't want to have people stacking up and having an issue there. So we made that decision. However, neighboring airports, Clarksville and Ozark, are both aware it's going on. They're both really excited about it. The enthusiasm we've had from the region and the people that have been coming in to help, just calling us and volunteering, has been absolutely fantastic. So those two airports, H35 and what's the Ozark identifier? I'm trying to remember now. It's just south of Birds. They actually will have, they've made provisions, for people to land there. You could, camp there if you wanted to. If you go on the website, there will be some limited rental cars that are available through the local dealership in Clarksville. They've offered to actually relocate those to Birds if you wanted. Just tremendous outpour. We have some limited shuttle capability from Clarksville over to the airport. The airport, the guy's actually going to come in and provide his mechanic on site in case we have any mechanicals there at Birds. Has 2 7-passenger vehicles that they've offered to go back and forth. We'll have to prearrange that. So there are a lot of provisions. If you go in there, it's just like the course. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't land. And we will commend people for making that choice. That to us is just as valuable as the guy that places first. The guy that shows judgment and says, I'm not going to do that right now. That guy deserves a lot of credit.
That's right. And that's one of the reasons why we've tried to be very clear about, there are a lot of options, a lot of outs. If for pilots that want to try to come in, but just, are not comfortable, we want to let them have a place to go, and but then still have a way to get to the event and participate.
So somebody just asked the question, what site are the procedures and everything on, and those are all on arkanstol.com, correct?
Yeah, yeah. There's a fly-in and drive-in info page.
Right, and you even got an interactive Google Earth kind of a thing on there about flying the course. I mean, really, really a very well done resource, and yeah, I got to commend you guys. You've really done a tremendous job with all of the information, for putting this together. It's excellent. So
Appreciate that. Yeah.
I will tell you
speaking
that
about being in the area, we'd love to see people come through Bentonville too. If people end up coming from that part of the country, you'll be welcome up there as well too. There's some other little places to camp, and I'm sure we can scrape something up for you to eat or something at Bentonville too. So if the folks get up that way.
And speaking of food, we've got a lot of really fun stuff planned to accommodate everybody. We do have a couple of catered dinners on Friday night and Saturday night, but time is running extremely short. If you want to get in on that, you need to get to arkanstol.com and register for those dinners if you want to take part in those. Aviat has been generous enough as our title sponsor to provide a barbecue dinner for everybody that's registered as a spectator or volunteer or as a competitor, for Arkanstol. So everyone will be welcome there for that over on the restaurant strip after qualifying. That's going to be a real fun time. Also, the Riverfront restaurant there, which is fantastic and amazing at Birds, has agreed to open up early. They're normally only open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but they're going to open up on Thursday for us as well. Make sure everybody coming in has, get something to eat. So that's super awesome.
And Rusty, I'll add to that. And this schedule is being updated on our site, but actually it's Wednesday through Sunday that they will be open.
Very nice. Very nice. See, it's updating so fast. We're not on track of it. and I'll say that,
I don't mean to interrupt the flow of what you're trying to do, but another question that I just have. So talking about folks that are driving in and spectators and that talk a little bit about what that experience is going to be like for folks that want to go watch all of these runways at once. It's kind of like a golf thing. You can't be on every green, I assume.
Yeah. It's we worked with Zen and Pam out at Birds, and also worked with some of our team that are safety folks to make sure that we've got some good, safe viewing areas for everybody, but that are up close and personal to the action. So we'll have a viewing area over on what we call the restaurant strip over by the restaurant that as somebody with a spectator armband, is paid for access there. You'll be able to get in and get up, close to the flight line to be, again, up close and personal with that. There's a gate that separates the main campground at Birds from the main runway. And that will be a kind of a main access point. Once you're inside that gate on the Airfield grounds there, that's where you get spectator access, and there you'll be able to get up close and personal with the competitor airplanes and be there with the sponsors and their tents and displays. Good spectating areas on both sides, the north and south side of the main runway. But then we've also got this really cool little secret path that you can take if you feel like you want to go for a little walk. You can head off out of what we call the North 40, which is where we're going to have all of the transient planes coming in. Yeah, and you'll be able to get out there, and there's a little viewing area of the cross runways out there, which will be really nice. So it'll be a little bit of a hike, but Zen's got it mowed out real nice for everybody that wants to go out there.
So, and what you said, Steve, is very apropos. In the what we live in today and what is the new reality. That is one of the things that has really been able to, and we've been asked this question a lot. It's like everything else is canceled. Why are you guys still holding this? Is it a responsible thing to do? Well, first off, we think the aviation community is always a little bit special because we assess and analyze risk all the time on every flight. And that's what we expect our our spectators and our other pilots to do. But beyond that, it is a golf course. So literally, we have gone and we've taken the approach, instead of establishing certain quote unquote spectator areas, we protected the runways, we protected the airspace that needs to be protected, and everything else, especially for the folks that have been to birds before, is, I don't call it free roam, but there's a lot of space to move around. It's going to be going on all day. So, it'll be some variety. You can take on the restaurant strip for a while. You can go out north or south side of that main strip, go over and hike over and see the cross runways. And for those you're bringing along that don't care anything about airplanes, there's a really cool river right there. So there's a lot of stuff to do.
So somebody has the question about can we make reservations to make sure we can camp with specific other people? I'm coming with 2 other planes and want all to camp together. I think the answer, probably like most fly-ins, is you need to show up together if that's the case.
Yep, exactly.
That's the best chance. We do have plenty of space out there, so let us know. The closer you arrive, the better. But yeah, in all intents and purposes, we can't guarantee it.
Very good.
Hey, Steve, there's one little additional benefit we're providing to all the spectators, and that is that they can Bluetooth on their phone in real time, follow the times of the participants as they run the course. It is Bluetooth from a main transmitter on the electric eye itself. They simply have to download the software before they get to birds, and they will be able to run real-time data on their cell phone, their smartphone, as the runs are taking place.
So, and that information about that app is on your website, I assume, too?
Give me just a second. I can pull it up, I think, here.
To answer your question, Steve, it will be shortly.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it will be shortly.
And somebody's tested that and it works without cell service.
Yeah,
yes,
it does.
It's Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody wants to know if they can ride a bicycle around the event.
Yeah.
So there's what it looks like. It's called Arena Gear Sports Timer on the iOS App Store. I would assume that they've got an app for Android as well, but I don't know that. But we've tested it extensively and it works fantastic. You should be able to pick that up on your smartphone or tablet or something, just about anywhere near the main runway area. And you can see the times as they come in, which is really cool.
Okay. Hey, how about bicycles? Can people ride bikes there?
We're trying to limit obviously, answer that 2 ways. The normal campgrounds are going to be open. So the area from the registration fence there between the main runway and the campgrounds, all that area is going to be, there will be normal campers that come to the area, because Birds is a very large facility. As a matter of fact, there is another off-road event happening the same weekend called URA. About a little less than 100 people show up for that, and they'll be 4-wheeling all over that North Mountain over there that we pointed out. So any normal vehicle activity that would occur at Birds is going to occur on the west side of that fence. Is going to be there. We are going to limit the traffic that is on the restaurant area, just because we want to make sure we're doing it safely. There will be, there will be some spinning props where we're staging everything and all that. So that access will be limited on the right side, or the east side.
On the main runway area there. Yeah, it's going to be a really busy scene. And just like most fly-ins, that don't allow skateboards and bicycles and things like that, we need to do the same thing there, just in anticipation of it being very tightly packed with a lot of foot traffic and airplane traffic as well.
Jetpacks. Okay, if we bring our jetpack, would that be all right?
There you go.
Probably.
There you go. I want to see that, Steve.
Yeah.
I'll pay an entry fee to see that one.
Yeah.
Steve, for anyone that's not flown into Birds before, they should anticipate a slightly longer downwind, because you cannot descend at all on downwind. You can only start descent after you turn base. So they're forced to hold altitude longer. So a longer pattern would be warranted. And for all of our competitors, if you go into the trees, it's going to add to your total time.
Very true. Very true. You don't want to do that.
I will say though that we have taken. We do have very skilled pilots going to be on this course. They are taking it seriously. We have a lighthearted approach because we want people to have fun, but these guys are taking it seriously. And if you watch, I think Kevin Quinn came in and he ran it. And there's been several others who've done YouTube videos on it, and they make it. It's serious. You run it. I've run it twice in a row, and I want to get out of my airplane and, kind of think about things for a while. So, but to that point, we also, and whether you're a spectator or you're flying in, we have taken some extra measures. So we will have some things standing by in case something were to happen. So that's something we've had volunteer effort on, and we're very pleased. Hopefully they're just spectators, and we expect them to be, but we will have that capability as well.
And
right. Yeah, the two questions that came up were on emergencies and porta potties.
Yes.
Which could be one and the same.
Is that one question or two?
Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
So the question was just about, what do you have, ambulances, that sort of thing on site, or what's your plan in that regard if somebody does get in trouble? And then what's your porta potty count per person?
Oh my gosh. Well, it depends on how many more registrations we get between now and next week, because that number is is varying per day. But we pull up. We actually just finished this map earlier today, but it'll show you what we've got on there. But we've strategically, first off, Birds being a full-time facility has a shower house, a nice shower house, and restroom facility that's kind of in between the action there in the treat area right by the river. And we are positioning porta potties throughout the grounds themselves. To be honest with you, and Zen's he's a good dude and comical. He's like, man, that's one of the easiest things to move if we have to. So if we have to move them, we'll move them. So we should be good. Plus the restaurant itself has restroom facilities in it as well. It does have, for you guys coming in, there are RV sites there and everything else. The closest towns, Ozark, is a 30-minute drive. Clarksville is about 50 minutes. They do have things you can pick up, but Birds is really good. They have a really nice little general store, plenty of ice. If you forget, they've got brats and burgers. They got great ice cream. Some of the beverages you want to drink there are in that store. So it's a pretty self-contained place.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, some of the amenities that we're kind of picking up there with Birds, and to answer that question specifically, we do have some volunteers that are going to be showing up with rescue equipment. We've been fortunate enough to secure, and unless they have an emergency, we're going to have a helicopter sitting there for a little while anyway, and be kind of to help them familiarize, but then also be on standby, either at the event or nearby. But then beyond that, we've got a shuttle service that's going to be going from the farthest reaches of Birds through the campground back over to the main site to make that a little bit easier for folks to get back and forth from the restaurant area over here back over to the main runway area, which is really nice.
I see one of the questions on there. I guess somebody's coming down with Matt, one of our sponsors, or as we've come to call him, Metal Matt. A very talented guy. Let me see here. Yeah, the offer to help is awesome, and don't we won't take that lightly. Send us your name. We'll put you on the list in case we need you. That does lead into a little bit here that another thing that's been very impressive and humbling for us is that we have had people take a look at this and offer to come in and make it a reality. And that those are the sponsors. I won't go into a lot of details, more of an informational session here. We've had right at about 27 sponsors that have believed enough in us to put some of their money behind it. So Several of the OEMs will be there, and some really cool different folks you may want to come and check out. So we'll have a little sponsor area where you guys can take a look at that, and a lot of local stuff. Got a couple folks that have sponsored us with some whiskey and some beer and things like that, and some local flavor. So we're looking forward to it. I think there'll be as much fun had, I think, afterwards as there will the day of.
Pete Brown's asking if there's going to be any live stream during the event, and we're proud to say that there won't be, because Birds does not have any cell service. We like it that way, which is, it makes it challenging sometimes, but that is part of the fun of Birds. We are going to have lots of media on site though, and there should be some great stuff that comes out of the event after the event is over. We've got some really fantastic folks that are going to be basically led by Eric Johnston Photography out of Dallas. If you guys know him, he's been a real integral member of our team and helping us with media, and is going to coordinate all of the on-site media activity.
Very good. Did we cover all the things you guys need to cover?
I think
we're good.
Yeah.
And just like every video conference that we've had, we came away with a to-do list, so we're good.
Just want to make sure if anybody else got any last minute questions they want to ask. Obviously, the website is really well done. It's a great resource. You guys have been great. Great, very responsive to, I'm sure, to any emails or any questions that come up. I know that from doing events myself that you really want people to register before they show up, if they can at all, and register as soon as they can. Those are the two things. It's always hard to you want to be ready for everybody so that they have a great experience, and if they don't register in advance, it's hard to do that. So I know that you're pushing that. So hopefully folks will do that, and we're looking forward to seeing you here in just a little over a week.
Awesome. Thank you,
and
Steve.
I hope you have a successful event, and thanks for being there. And everybody out there that's flying here, enjoy your time in Northwest Arkansas, and we hope to see you back.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Everybody. Have a good night.